Welcome to Theology Digest, where deep theology meets real life. Get ready for bold ideas, fresh insights, and conversations that challenge and inspire. Tune in, think deeper, and let your mind ignite.
All right, so we wanted to deep dive into this whole Steven Lawson thing. Yeah, it's been kind of blowing up this week in the evangelical world.
Yeah.
Lawson, a really well-known pastor, in hot water over some of his actions, and understandably, people are feeling pretty shaken up. So we're going to dive into theologian James White's response to this whole thing, and I think he makes some really interesting points about faith and leadership.
Yeah, I think what's so fascinating is that he uses this very specific situation with Lawson to kind of zoom out and talk about something I think we've all experienced in different ways. That feeling of being let down by someone that we admire or that we've put on a pedestal.
It's so true. It's like when you realize your favorite teacher makes mistakes too, or even that band you love. They're just normal people behind the music. And I think when it comes to faith and leaders, it's like, oh man, that hits different.
Definitely.
Speaking of which, White shared this story about having dinner with Lawson. He calls it the John 10 dinner, and you know me and a good story, so let's get into it.
Oh, this is a good one, and I think it perfectly illustrates the subtle ways even good intentions can kind of go sideways. So picture this. White and Lawson are having dinner, and Lawson is totally engrossed in White's insights on John chapter 10.
Right, the Good Shepherd passage.
Exactly. Seems innocent enough, right?
Totally just like typical pastor dinner conversation.
Right. But here's the thing. Later, White realizes that Lawson basically used their whole conversation as fodder for his own sermon. It's almost like he was subtly picking White's brain without directly saying, hey, give me some sermon material.
Oh, that is sneaky. It makes you wonder if we're guilty of that sometimes too.
Yeah.
Like, do we ever see people as a means to an end, even if it's subconsciously? Especially like when we're chasing after, a platform or recognition.
It's a good gut check for all of us. And it ties into White's broader point about the danger of putting leaders on a pedestal. Because the bigger they seem, the harder they fall, right? And then suddenly your faith is shaken, not because of something in the Bible, but because a human being messed up.
Yeah, and that's why he's so adamant about building your faith on something unshakable, on God's word, not on any human being, no matter how impressive their ministry might seem.
It's hard though, right? Because as humans, we want those mentors, those figures who just seem to have it all together. I remember when I first started going to my church, the pastor then just seemed larger than life.
Right.
But as I got to know him, I realized he was just a regular guy, juggling family doubts, all of it. And honestly, it made his sermons even more powerful because it's like, okay, you're in the trenches with us.
It's that authenticity that resonates, right?
Yeah.
That understanding that we're all on this journey together, warts and all.
And that leads perfectly into White's time at Fuller Theological Seminary, which he talks about in the video. It was this real melting pot of different beliefs, even some that he strongly disagreed with. But he learned to engage with those viewpoints, to find the nuggets of truth, even in places that he didn't expect.
Interesting. So instead of just shutting down those conversations he wasn't agreeing with, he used it as a chance to kind of sharpen his own thinking.
Exactly. Like a mental workout.
Yeah.
He wasn't afraid of asking tough questions, of getting into the nitty-gritty of, why do I believe what I believe? And I think that's so important for us today, especially in this age of echo chambers, online echo chambers, where it's easy to surround yourself with only the voices that you already agree with.
It's so true. I know I'm guilty of it. Scrolling through my feed, liking posts that just confirm what I already think. Yeah. But White's experience is a good reminder to get out of that bubble.
Right.
And actually wrestle with some different perspectives.
It's like that saying, iron sharpens iron. It's through those challenging conversations, even the uncomfortable ones, that we refine our own faith and understanding. And this leads to another really important point that White brings up, especially in light of this whole situation with Lawson, the whole issue of how we navigate accusations and evidence in the digital age.
Oh, yeah. That's something I've been thinking about a lot lately. Like, how do we approach these online claims about leaders, especially when it feels like everyone has a platform and an opinion?
It's tricky. It really is. White expresses this concern about trying to apply biblical principles of evidence to the Wild West of the internet. Like, how do you even define proof in a world where things can be taken out of context, edited, fabricated so easily?
That's a good point. Because it's like in the Bible, there were witnesses, physical evidence. But now it's all digital footprints and screenshots. It's like, how do you even know what to believe sometimes?
Right. And this tension between our traditional understandings of justice and the complexities of the digital world, it's a conversation that goes way beyond just this one situation with Lawson. We're seeing it play out everywhere, from cancel culture debates to online shaming.
Yeah.
It's a minefield.
Seriously.
Yeah.
It's like we need a whole new rule book for how we handle this stuff online. But where do you even start?
I know, right? That's the million-dollar question. And, you know, I appreciate that White doesn't pretend to have all the answers. He's not giving us like a 5-step program for navigating digital scandals. He's acknowledging the tension, the gray areas, and encouraging us to wrestle with these questions thoughtfully instead of jumping to conclusions or, you know, just retreating to our own little corners of the internet where everyone agrees with us.
Which is hard, though, because when it comes to leaders we've admired, we want that clear-cut right and wrong.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And this actually brings us to another really crucial point that White raises: forgiveness. He emphasizes that even as we wrestle with these complex issues of, you know, holding people accountable, we're also called to forgive.
Oh, man, that is a tough one.
Oh.
Especially when there's been, you know, real hurt, real breach of trust. How do we balance forgiveness with accountability? Asking for a friend, obviously.
Right. And he addresses that. It's not about, you know, sweeping things under the rug or just pretending like nothing wrong happened. It's about acknowledging the wrong, allowing for consequences, but also leaving room for redemption and restoration. It's a both and, not an either or.
So it's like we can hold both of those truths at the same time. We can forgive and still say, hey, that wasn't okay.
Exactly. It's about grace and truth. And it requires us to engage these situations with both compassion and discernment, to really listen to all sides involved, to seek wise counsel, and to pray for God's guidance. It's messy, it's ongoing, but it's so essential for the health and well-being of the church.
This whole deep dive into White's response has really given us a lot to think about. From the dangers of idolizing leaders to those really tricky digital dilemmas and this whole idea of holding forgiveness and responsibility and tension. It's a lot.
It is, but they're important conversations to be having. And if we can approach them with humility, with a willingness to listen and learn, and a deep commitment to truth and grace, then I think we can come through this stronger, more grounded in our own faith, and honestly more equipped to navigate the complexities of just living in this world.
So as you process everything we talked about today, here's a final thought. What can you do in your own circles of influence to model this balance of grace and truth? How can you be a part of creating a culture where we can acknowledge wrongdoing, but also seek healing and restoration and ultimately grow stronger in our faith? Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.